Hi everyone, this is one of our live sessions here at Classical Guitar Corner, and we're doing it throughout the lockdown period. I hope you're well, I hope you're safe, I hope this provides some inspiration, some distraction, and maybe even some enjoyment along the way. In today's lesson, we are going to be looking at our first piece of repertoire. In the past sessions, we've had interviews, and we've also had 4 scale workshops, and today we're going to be looking at the Prelude from the Suite in D minor by Robert de Visee. And I know people are just coming in, and often it takes a little while. So as people are coming in, I will play that one more time so we can have just a nice introduction to the piece. It was very different than the way I played it just 20 seconds ago. So this is the piece we're going to be playing and having a look at. I do actually on YouTube have this piece already as a bit of a sort of score walkthrough with harmonic analysis and voice analysis. Now, I'd like to say why we're having a look at this piece and why I think it's a really good piece to study. You know, I think there are pieces that we obviously just enjoy because we love the music, and there are pieces that have great educational value. And this piece is the first piece that we find in grade 5 in the Classical Guitar Corner curriculum. And the reason is that we start to really come into the world of polyphony, of voices intertwining, having their own path, taking care of those voices with our right and left hand, starts to introduce difficulties and challenges, independence in the left hand fingers, independence in the right hand fingers, right hand weight. So we've got some ornaments, and also just the way we have to treat the music. This is true intermediate territory as a player, and so it's a real step up, I think, from repertoire that might have arpeggios in the right hand or scale passages to music that is really reliant upon your ability to hold multiple lines or voices at the same time. And of course, with that, we get a lot of musical gratification because it becomes it can be quite profound, this type of music, this polyphonic kind of music. And we often find this in the music of Johann Sebastian Bach as well. So I see a lot of people coming in. Bob Bagley, hello. Spiller from Charleston, South Carolina. Great to have you back again. Rick Lord is here. Hi, Rick. I hope you had a great Easter. Erica Green is here. Hello, Erica. I just went through your very good grade 1 exam the other day. So congratulations on that. We were just talking about you this morning because we have the duet challenge coming up in the Academy, and we thought we might find a duet for you and your daughter to play. I believe it was your daughter, the violinist anyway, in the family. So great to have everyone in here. Thank you for saying hello. I guess it's sort of morning, evening, afternoon, midnight, maybe. It's got to be midnight somewhere, doesn't it? So maybe you can say hello in your most cliched, colloquial salutation. So in Australia, we'd say g'day. And in New York, we probably just say something brusque and dismissive. But maybe you can say your own welcome from all the different parts of the world. So it's great to have everyone in. So many of you had their email that just went out. If you're on the live list, that's classicalguitarcorner.com/live. And I like to send out emails on the same day that we do the live sessions, just to remind you. And if we have any scores or downloads, that's in there as well. And so there is a download for this, which is the score of the piece. I've made it free on cgcpublishing.com, so you can go over there, go into the solos, and download the Prelude from this suite in D minor. It'd be very, very useful to download it so that we can follow along. And I'm going to be referencing, I'm not going to be putting things up on the screen. I'm rather going to be referencing them verbally so you can follow along with me. So like I said, I did already do something on YouTube with the harmony and the voices. But this time we're going to go into really just playing. I'm going to walk through measure by measure. And I've taught this so many times now that I like to think that I know a lot of the places that trip people up. So I'm looking forward to dealing with it. We're going to walk through very slowly, but given that there's only 10 measures to go through. So it looks like there's some yos and how you doing? Danny says, how you doing? You're from New York. Nice. Yo from Philly. Oh, that's Robert Guerrero. Hallo from the Netherlands. Goed dag, I suppose. Great. Anyway, let's dive in. It looks like everyone's here. Thank you for tuning in. I hope you are safe, happy, healthy, and well. Let's have a look at the Prelude. So let me turn on this other camera here. Here's a little technical adjustment. I'll have to ask the crew members over here to adjust their cameras. There you go. We have an aloha, a buenas tardes. Very nice. Okay, so let's play. I'm going to play you from the first note, which is on the off beat of measure beat 1, through to the downbeat of measure 3. It sounds like this. Now that to me is one idea, and we can actually break that up into several different sections. Let's talk about the very, very beginning. I actually didn't make very good contact. I just did my nails before this, now they're shorter than I feel. There's a nice note. Now something, taking off from there, one of the things that we learn very early on as classical guitarists is to alternate our right hand fingers. And there's certain things about alternating and one finger per fret. What else? Certain like hand positions that we start to really treat like rules of sorts. And they do often have a general application. But we're going to explore right now a really good example of when we might not want to alternate our fingers. This can be quite slow, depends on the tempo you want to play it, but we can make a conscious decision just to take our favorite finger in the right hand that has really sweet tone or controlled tone, and we just have this lovely lovely line that sings from that top register up here on the second string. And I think that it's absolutely okay to play with your repeated I finger. Have a look at my finger. Oops. I'm just lightly brushing the string. Actually, a little bit what Julian Bream used to call a top stroke, where I go across the string. It's not back to the palm, rather it's across the string. It's very light sound, but can make a very bell-like tone. So that might be preferable than if this is what your alternation sounds like. You have to experiment with your own hand. And really at this, like I said, we're entering into true intermediate territory of the repertoire, and we want to start making choices like a painter with different types of brushes. What finger will get this same kind of, the sound that I want? Are there differences in sort of the weight of each finger, etc.? Middle finger, maybe rest stroke middle finger, maybe alternation. This is the fun part of music, in my opinion, in that there's not a right or wrong here. This is musical choices, and this is where you can really start to be creative and make artistic choices of your own, like saying, well, this is how I prefer it to sound, and that's your musical choice, and you're a musical artist, so that's what it's going to be, and that's a beautiful aspect about music. So let's now deal with the left hand, and this is something that does come up quite a bit. I have to get on my tippy toes here. All right, so to start off with, we want to make a very legato line. The legato means connected. It's very difficult to connect notes on the guitar. There's always going to be that tiny little millisecond where we touch the string with our right hand, and the sound is going to be cut just slightly. So we need to give our sound as much chance as possible to connect and sing. One thing we can do in the left hand here, you see that I'm going to pull my fingers away so you can see. Don't suggest doing this in playing. This is just for visuals. It looks terrible actually on the screen. But I'm putting my fourth and second finger down ahead of time, and that means that finger is already there. If you have it up in the air hovering over the string, it's just one extra slight movement to do to synchronize, so you're actually improving your chances to have a connected legato sound if that finger is already down. And as we're going back to the A here on the second string, you can just simply put that fourth finger back there. It's quite a difference than this. You can hear the disconnect, the staccato nature of those notes. So that's one thing to start getting this very singing line. Now the next note is down here. So we got kind of two options, I suppose. We could shift, which is probably the most obvious way. And it works if your shifting technique is very polished and relaxed. However, what I often find in people's playing is that when they do shift, in general, there's an accent that gets built in because the left hand is moving. We're trying to move light and quickly so that we can connect those notes. But that sometimes translates to an accent in the right hand, and it might sound like this. Right? So one way to get around that, obviously, is to really focus in on the shift and try and keep that right hand light without accenting as you might be shifting. Another option, which I like very much, is to start reaching for that E, that 5th fret second string, ahead of time. So if you're not even playing the piece, you can still play along with me here. You can go 4, 2, 4 on the 10th fret, 8th fret, 10th fret, and then reach while holding the A down to that E. And the goal is to connect these as if they're played by a cello or sung by a singer, which I really think is the world of which this music came from. So it gets around that quick movement. It looks fluid, it looks elastic and fluid, and I think it sounds quite fluid as well. So then as we come down, we contract as well. So don't be afraid. This is, as I said, we're entering intermediate territory, and we're starting to move away from these rules that we find as beginners. So we're actually stretching out, we're changing the hand position. The thumb might even come off because it's quite a big stretch, or the fingers might look oddly out of position compared to this. You might dip a little bit to get that E and then come back up. And then we get back into position. And you can see this kind of a fluid movement. I just love this passage. It's so beautiful. Now, have you ever heard of those people getting masterclasses where they spend an entire hour and don't get past the first message? I'm not going to try and make this one, but there's just so much to talk about and think about in these beautiful, still, gentle lines. So one other idea here is that I'm going to put some words to this, and you can throw them out as soon as we finish this lesson. It's just arbitrary words that allow us to kind of put a sonic analogy, if you like, into this process. So we'll say, the air is still in morning light. The air is still in morning light. sometimes it's nice to choose maybe words that might evoke a certain way of playing. Sort of this is the reverse of what they used to call word painting, where in word painting would be down, like we're going down, when they would play a scale that goes down, things like that, where they're somewhat illustrating the words with the music. So we're going to do the inverse here, or the opposite, in that we're finding words that suit the musical gesture. And so with that little sentence there, the air is still in morning light. Now, if you were to say that with your voice, you could say it, the air is still in morning light. And that's a perfectly good way to say that. But you could also say it, the air is still in morning light. And I think that is a really, they're both beautiful. And we'll find out actually that this sort of 4-note plus 4-note idea really just gets used over and over again all the way to the end here. So having that freedom of expression of different ways, I've actually heard this repeated different ways, as in choosing some repeats in these sections. So you might actually want to do it differently a second way around. But maybe at home you can play. So that one had a little bit of a break between the two ideas, and then this one is flowing through. What I often call this little break between those notes is a breath. And we're going to come up with this concept many times, well, not many times, more times in this piece. And the breath is really just that. You might, as a singer, the air is still in morning light. I mean, there's not very many notes to have to sing with one breath, but you get the idea. It's literally a place to take a breath. Woodwind players will put it's a little comma symbol in their score. Similarly, singers they mark in where they take a breath because it's going to affect the music. So if you chose to do that kind of phrasing, you could put a little comma, breath mark after the E on beat 3. Now, that's one voice, right? And that voice continues. And it descends down to that C sharp. And similar to that very first measure, we actually start off the beat. If we were to count this with numbers, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1. See how the idea starts on the and. This happens very often in the music of Johann Sebastian Bach. This, or because there's a beat 1, da 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 da, or what else? There's plenty of examples of anacrusis, or starting on the offbeat. The idea is starting just off the beat. And what this does is it has a feeling of momentum because it doesn't go 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. It goes and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and so it's this kind of forward motion, which is very beautiful. So thinking just of the top line still, we could repeat those same words and choose the same kind of phrasing, choose the phrasing again. The air is still in morning light. The air is still in morning light. So, I mean, you can add your own words to this. Maybe that'd be a nice project for someone to come up with some lyrics. But you can see that the same idea is present in the second time. So, for an artistic choice, perhaps the first one has a breath. The air is still in morning light. And then the second phrase, no breath. The air is still in morning light. And that way we have some beautiful variation to keep our interest. However, Mr. de Visee has actually given us a very beautiful thing to introduce in the second measure. This is such a gorgeous entry. It really reminds me of church music, Gregorian chant, where yes, there might be a treble line floating across there, and then suddenly an alto line or a high tenor line comes in. These names, soprano, alto, tenor, these are names of vocal ranges that you might find in a choir. So this alto voice comes in. You have to just pardon my singing for the whole afternoon. So you can play that. Looking at the notes in measure 2, going to the downbeat of measure 3, we are taking just the notes with the stems down. And it's just a lovely descending tetrachord down to the A. So playing those separately really attunes our ear to that line, that musical line. And then we can start to play horizontally instead of vertically. So let me play this as best I can with this horizontal idea, and then let me demonstrate this vertical idea. And on it goes. Now if I were to play it vertically, it would have more accents on the beats. And this does happen very, very frequently, that people tend to accent these beats. Why? One is that we somewhat get a little bit trained to be kind of beaty, to play accented on those beats. But two, we have these shifts. So one aspect is going to be getting your ear to listen to it a certain way and get really in tune with those musical lines. Another aspect is going to be in the way you transition. So we play with the thumb, this sort of alto line, and the thumb will have its own sound, nice and consistent. So playing that line with the thumb is going to be really great. Now what I often hear in this piece is this. Where there's a kind of movement like this. The fingers lift up, and what that creates is staccato. So it detaches those voices and ends up making things sound a little bit more rhythmic. Ja, da, ja, di, ja. So the technical skill that we need to create legato is the independence in these fingers. So getting the 1 and the 2 is going to shift down. This is a guide finger. Is it 4 here? Yes. 4th finger. That stays down as we shift. This choreography of the left hand is going to allow us to have these beautiful singing lines that are connected, not only 1, but 2 at the same time. So let me play that whole phrase from the beginning to the downbeat of measure 3, and then someone can count up how many notes we've covered in 25 minutes. Right? And towards the end there, I think it's tempting to sometimes accent the end, right? But I feel that we want to shape this line, and so in fact we're going to pull back a little bit, where it's going to go. It rests at that point. And then as if another voice, this would be now the tenor voice, I would say. The tenor voice that hasn't sung yet suddenly comes in. Beautiful moment. Before that moment happens, I think we need to use one of our breaths that I mentioned before. There's some alliteration for you. So at the end of this, you can actually literally take a breath. 9 times out of 10 with this moment in the piece, I will ask the musician to pause a little bit, to wait a little bit, but I inevitably get almost zero pause, especially if they've been working with a metronome. Now, I'm not saying it doesn't work by doing that. You can just flow on in, but I do think there's a lovely punctuation, just as you would find with words and sentences in a speech. And it just gives that room to breathe, literally and figuratively, and it's lovely feeling in the hands. Do you ever come across those musicians, their hands just look like jelly and they seem so relaxed? Well, it's moments like this that imbue the music with relaxation. So even the first one, you really wait a long time here because it's a natural pausing point. It's the end of a phrase. I don't think anyone got put off by that long pause. You can really stretch it out. So take more time there than you think you need, and then start to experiment with it. Go over the top, exaggerate this pause idea. 2, 3, 4. And then start moving on. Now, the next phrase really starts to get into interesting counterpoint, and what I mean by that is the movement of the voices starts to get a bit more interesting. Before, we just had a descending line both in the alto and also it's descending in the soprano. It's so simple but so beautiful, very evocative. Now the tenor comes in and we have a different type of movement, more active. Kind of got some strength and boldness to that bass line there. Maybe we could call it a bass voice instead of a tenor. And then over the top of it, it's a little bit like our first idea, but much more active and many more leaps in the melodic material. Let's hear them together. Now rhythmically, there's something interesting that has crept in here. We have a dotted rhythm. And the dotted rhythms in this piece, I think it's really important to play them correctly, play them rhythmically, because they have a certain effect when they're played in time. Let's say we have this. Right? I'm starting to get out of tune, but we take the dotted rhythm away from it, which is da 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 da, right? Ba ba, placing that downbeat. Then it has a regal rhythmic impulse. But if we go, very, very different. So it's really, you want to think about how you treat those rhythms. And I would try and treat them with a lot of rhythmic integrity. So not taking too many liberties there. Okay, so at the and of one in measure 3, I would suggest, even though we could easily start with the index finger, I would suggest starting with the thumb. Why? Because the thumb will sound a certain way, and that's going to tie the music together. Instead of this, it doesn't sound too much different, but maybe in your hands it sounds more different. But I think just using the same finger here, thumb, 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 thumb. It's one of those ways in our technique that we can give ourselves the best chance of having a consistent voice is by using things that are going to help us, not making it more difficult by just using the thumb the whole time. We don't have to micromanage the notes so much. It's always going to be the thumb. It'll have a certain weight to it and a certain sound because of the nature of the thumb. So we'll play that whole line with the stems pointing down from measure 3 to the downbeat of measure 5, just with the thumb. Now, there are a couple of tricky little left-hand movements in here that I know do crop up. So one of them is going to be here. That's exercise level stretch. It's kind of the kind of stretch that we come across in exercises for our left hand. It's quite a divide, and it also comes after a 16th note. So da 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 da. Right? There's a relatively quick transition to those notes. So we need to think exactly about our transition. Have a look at my left hand. It can be very sort of jerky if we were to play the D on its own and have our fingers just relaxed. We have to get all the way over here with our third finger for the C sharp, and then the E is probably pretty accessible. It's not very far away, but the third finger has to travel quite a ways, and it's this movement, right? So that's difficult any way you slice it. So what we need to do is start moving to our destination ahead of time. First of all, we're going to use that guide finger, and then as we bring that D up, we're actually going to be bringing the third finger across. This is yet another aspect of really great players who make things look easy. It's because their left hand is moving towards their destination ahead of time. I think it's the great... This analogy, or this tangent makes no sense, but the Wayne Gretzky, right? Think where the puck is going, not where the puck is. Maybe that makes sense on some level. So that involves not only the third finger, but have a look at my wrist. I'm actually bringing my wrist in, and you could probably see a little bit my elbow. And by bringing my wrist in, sort of pivoting a little bit on that D and bringing my elbow in, the third finger doesn't have to reach rather as much. It's brought around by the swinging of the... So... the movement happens here. All right, there it is. And then the third finger's sort of already halfway there. So you can do that kind of movement in slow motion. This happens in many, many instances. And honestly, it's one of the main reasons that we have little trip-ups in pieces of repertoire. If we're problem solving, if we've got our detective cap out and the little magnifying glass, it's, I would say 4 or 5 times out of 10, it's going to be left-hand transitions that mess us up with rhythms, that missing notes. Like for instance, the Petzold minuet. Right? These two notes, similar, 3/4, is tricky to get because people will try and do this. And then grab it. But if you... movement is happening while I'm playing the G. Maybe if it's a little test, you could play a G with your first finger and just move your hand around. And hear that note. You can, I mean, we're just playing around here, but it's the same principle. Right? So this kind of movement's very important. So that's a little micro moment there, beats 3 and 4 in measure 3. All right, we keep going. Sorry, going from 4 to 1, really. And then stretch. Here it's very easy to let go. We can. The music actually doesn't ask for the C sharp to be held on, but we can. Stretch, stretch, stretch. Now here, these chords. These chords are difficult. These chords are difficult to make legato. So it's musically, it kind of works to go. It sounds fine. Ba, 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 ba. But I do challenge you, if you're learning this piece, to take time with these chords and really try and connect them. It's going to take a certain finesse in the left hand guide finger, transition to the bari, then guide finger back down, pivot, look the rotation in the elbow, guide finger, fourth finger. It is possible to transition between these chords. And that is the key to playing horizontally rather than vertically. If I was to play this vertically, chord, chord, and that's what you hear in your ear, but I want you to hear this. And this. Contrary motion. One voice ascends, one voice descends. And in the middle one even, so beautiful. Oh. And that's why, in my opinion, music like this and music of Bach, we can live with and play it for our lives, because we can hear different things at different times and we can bring out different ideas, and there's so many variables. Like, let's play it 3 times. Now I want you to put your attention here. I will try my best to bring out these lines. So put your attention on the top line. Put your attention on the bass line. Now put your attention on the middle line. Give me luck. Wish me luck. Tricky, but yes, maybe a little bit. Okay, so that's another natural stopping point. That's another natural point for a breath, right? We've had again, we can take this breath, and in the score that I have given you, I've actually stipulated a roll. Now, I do believe that rolls, arpeggiations like this, are almost a form of ornament, because, and I think they should be quite consciously chosen. They're wonderful, and obviously they're very guitaristic, but I think it's very common for us to split notes. And what I mean by split notes is play them like that. More than we really want to. I don't think a piano player would ever like consciously choose that. So in voices, we often want to play them really exactly in time, but this moment in time is specifically asked for a roll. And it's I think of it as a rhythm of triplet to the downbeat. Because we're placing that top A, right? Then now, question for everyone playing at home, because I actually don't remember it. Who wrote "I Will Survive"? I think I know the answer, but this is going out. This is going out to the audience. Who wrote "I Will Survive"? I know that there's a little bit of 30-second delay, so I'll have to gas bag a little bit. But this passage here, well, actually, the follow-up question to that is, what are we hearing here? What harmonic compositional device are we hearing? What are we hearing there? Yeah, I thought it was Gloria Gaynor. Yes. I think Gloria Gaynor is the original artist who did "I Will Survive," and there's been other iterations of it. So thank you. And you'll be surprised at the connection between this piece and "I Will Survive." There's actually many connections between many pieces and "I Will Survive." Does anyone know why? What is it in "I Will Survive" and in this piece that's the same compositional device? Let me play it again while people come in from, or the answers come in. So this to me is a harmonic equivalent of starting on the and of 1, and 2, and 3, and 4, and 5, sort of feeling of moving forward. Okay, so we got some answers coming in. Kerry Conroy CTC ambassador says circle of fifths, and she's absolutely right. And then someone from Facebook, it unfortunately just comes up as unknown on my feed, but said sequence, and you are both correct. So the circle of fifths is where we've probably seen this diagram where it lays out harmonies, and we go from C major. If you start going clockwise, you go up a fifth to G major, up a fifth to D major, up a fifth to A major. If you go the other way, you go counterclockwise, you go in fourths. There's all sorts of kind of cool mathematical things that happen. But if we were to start at A major, tick, 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 tick. I know you're probably seeing me in mirror or something, but A major, and we want to go anti-clockwise. We go A major, and then we go back to D major, that's 2 sharps. Then we go back to G major, that's 1 sharp. Then we go back to C major, that's no sharps, no flats. Then we've hit the flat side, and we're over to F, 1 flat. And then we go to B flat, 2 flats. And that's where we leave our circle of fifths. We can kind of exit the roundabout, if you will. So I'll call them out, and you'll start to go, oh yeah. This is A, D, G, C, F, B flat. Right, you can hear it kind of, there's a similarity about the way that's churning through these chords. So that's the circle of fifths connection, this harmonic pattern, if you will. And then the tool that Visee is using to get between these chords is a sequence. So a sequence is a similar idea, usually moved up or down a step. So listen to the bass line. Very sort of repetitive idea relative to one another. And then so we have this, that's the sequence where we've got the same idea, just shifted up and down, and that's where we get, first I was afraid, first I was afraid, I can't sing, I was petrified, kept thinking I could never live without you by my side. Now see, if I don't sing, YouTube won't give me a copyright algorithm. And in fact, that E7 is exactly what comes up here. So we've got, at first I was afraid, I was petrified. There's that E that comes up. I think that's maybe more in the cake version. In any case, that is the harmonic underpinning of this section. So it's nice to understand it's not a sequence of, it's not a series of random notes. They're very much connected in these little ideas. Chick, 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 chick. So it suddenly makes that whole section one idea. In terms of memorization, I love this kind of thing, because instead of trying to memorize this and all that, you just go, oh, we hit here, circle of fifths, away we go. We've gone A, yes, 7, 8 goes to A7. Goes to the 7 chords, which sort of, I think of it almost like harmonic dominoes. When it goes tick, tick, it gets to the 7th, it goes click, and kicks to the next chord, then goes to the 7, click, 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 click. So you could keep going around the circle of fifths. I think some people are laughing at my singing. Thank you, Nikki. Nikki, who does have a wonderful voice. Yes. So, one thing we can do with sequences that is very nice is we can exaggerate the similarities. So what I mean is that we have this idea, and you hear that it repeats. And so in order to make this, we've taken a few minutes to discuss this, and in order to make this immediately obvious to the listener, which we need to do, we need to have them understand this is a long idea connected with sequence and harmony immediately. So we can actually amplify that by the way we play it. This can be either through some articulation, or it could be through some ornamentation, or it could be to do with just sort of the nuance. So, we've got up, sorry. Sorry. Strong, weak, strong, weak, strong. What does that sound like? What about, let's see if we can do with articulation, maybe a staccato to tie it together. Okay, maybe on the bum bum. Right, it ties it together. I don't particularly like that for this because, yeah, I mean, that's just my personal taste. What about ornamentation? Maybe not even trills, it could be just a grace note. maybe a grace note. But you get the idea. I'm just kind of making them up as I go here. But those little ideas, well, actually, let's try and marry all three. Okay, I'm going to put in some staccato notes and a couple of little grace notes. Messed it up. Let's try again. Yeah, I think it sort of works. It's the kind of thing you play around with, and again, reiterating, this is intermediate territory. And Richard Crowe has thrown out a challenge. Try upper mordants. Richard, you know what you're talking about. Richard actually is a really fantastic exponent of experimenting and taking other people's interpretations and looking at them and breaking them down and putting them into his own. So a really great example of this approach where we can be creative in this part. So, thank you, Richard. So all of that is to say we have that beautiful sequence there. Now we are going to continue on from measure 7, and then we hit the highest note of the piece. Now, it's a very small microcosm of a piece, but maybe this will pique your interest. The golden mean, if any of you come across this term, often we find either the most intense harmony or rhythm, or in this case, the highest pitch of a piece around about the golden mean. Now, I haven't done the mathematics on this, but we could sort of say more or less 3/4 to 2/3 of the way through a piece. It just has a nice formula to it. You find that very much in Bach's music. You'll find those beautiful diminished sustained chords with fermatas, or 7 chords with fermatas, the golden mean. Something to Google for sure. So now, so we got this B flat, and in this edition and other editions there is a slur. Now, I've come across many people who because the slur technique is difficult to control rhythmically, it's very easy to sort of go blah, blah, because it's quick, right? But if you're finding this hard to control rhythmically, I would suggest to play it articulated with the fingers first, and this goes for any slurs that are hard to control. And then intertwine it with the actual slur. So articulated, with the slur. And as we're starting to get into slur territory here, I do want to start to say that, when we do exercises, we really think about slurs. We want them to be clean and crisp and articulate and even. But in a musical sense, we don't always want that. We actually want the innate properties of a slur, and that might be D, where the second note doesn't have as much attack on it. We're not trying to go, right? We're not trying to make it crystal clear. And this is very much the same case here. This is not a technical slur. A technical slur might help us play fast, right? That slur helps us start instead of going like that. But this is a musical slur where we want the effect. So in fact, you want to back off a little bit from the articulated nature of that slur. Just back off. Okay, Dave, I know. I know, Dave. Same thing goes when we get to the mordents or any ornamentation, is that when you think about ornament, you want it to ornament the note, the fundamental note. Right? That's the E. We don't want to be sort of making it really over the top like an exercise. So light, very lace-like. Again, really paying attention to that rhythm and da-da. Here again, we run into slurs. Now here we really have, again, the musical effect. We want the sigh, the instead of da 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 da, you know. So there's a certain way, and that it's worth working on them to get that musical sigh as opposed to the more articulated exercise approach. These also can be very tricky to play rhythmically because they often go, you kind of pull them off quickly and they get a little rushed. So again, that technique of playing it once articulated and then once with the slurs. Right, so we can get that. It's still, think of a singer, right? They would never go, ya da 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 da. You know, you'd be like, hey, you and the bass, slow down. But it's all it is our fingers that are rushing ahead with the slur technique. So we're getting to the end now of this massive 10 measure piece. Don't ever ask me to teach the chaconne. And then our favorite part that is a challenge, I think, for a lot of people that haven't come across trills at the end before. My number one tip for making this ending sit nicely is start by taking out the ornament. So we've got, and just placing those beats where they belong. You can even add in another bass note. You could go, just to keep things nice and steady. And then maybe you want to start slowing it down, adding in a little bit of rallentando. If it's hard to line up that rallentando, then let's subdivide like this. I'm actually playing subdivisions, just repeating that note. Is that 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2? Yeah, and then take it out. Now, if we feel confident and hear it in a certain way, now we can put that ornament in. Or, that didn't feel right. All sorts of ways, but I really suggest you take out that trill first because it really trips up a lot of people. Now, in terms of making that trill, same string, 2, 1. Here's a simple way to think of it. You can think of it as D, sort of, well, slow, quick. D, What I'm doing at the end there is instead of going like this, I'm going 2, 1, 3, 1. So 2, 1, 2, 1. And what I'm doing rhythmically is going slow, fast. Dee-da-dee-da-dee-dee-dum. And then you can potentially work on that to kind of, if you're a woodworker, you would sand down the edges of that. Right? It's still that same underlying structure of, let's say it's 8th, 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 16th. And then we start to smooth it out together, make it blend a little bit more. Oops. But again, I'm not going da-da-da-da-da. I'm not trying to overdo the accents on there. And then the last chord could be very kind of, again, Gregorian chant, block chord. Very balanced. Could be a little bit pont. Or it could be like this. Placing that. So there's a lot of sort of theoretical stuff in here about the voices and descending lines that I address more in another video, and this has been more about the physical playing of it. But let me just play through one more time. I feel like I need to... My nail's getting all rough. All right, I'll play from the top, and maybe some of these, it might be nice to hear it in context. And that might be a nice place to wrap it up. So I have to take off belly cam. Now I can relax. So that was quite a long session, longer than I thought it was going to be. But hey, there's so much to think about and enjoy in this piece. And a lot of people at the Academy have studied it. So I hope that this was useful and inspiring, and now you all have the music, as maybe some of you, if you came in just from YouTube or what have you. The music is free at cgcpublishing.com. It's just made it free because it's easy to watch this, and then maybe you can go back on the replay and revisit some things. I did see a question about Anglais. I saw some French about nails, and I also saw another question about nails. As an aside, I see Nikki has wash hands, wash hands, wash hands. The clap symbol, I think, has been replaced, because it's been used so commonly these days, by the wash hands symbol. So for all of those of you that washed your hands at me, I thank you. So I see Richard suggesting different ideas. Richard, you'll have to do a little rundown of all your ideas, because Richard's really great at exploring some of these ideas, and I think there are a lot of opportunities here to add some ornaments and different ideas and really make it your own. So the composer was Robert de Visee. He was born in 1655 and died in 1732. So that is, let's put it this way, he was 30 years older than Bach. But he kind of overlapped in the time of Johann Sebastian Bach. And Handel, same birthday. And Scarlatti, same birthday. Scarlatti, Handel, and Bach, all born in 1685. So I did have a question about nails. Look, I use these things. I think I have them. I think they're listed in the Academy, the link somewhere, but there's probably somewhere on CGC. These are little, I don't know what they're called, micro mesh. I think they're called micro mesh. They're actually used for polishing glass and fiberglass, and people use them for polishing boats. But you can get them in these tiny little squares, these padded squares. And the nice thing is they never really run out. You can wash them with water, but they don't wear down. And the other thing I use is one of these little nail files. They're little, they're sturdy, great. That's my endorsement for nail care equipment. Thank you, everyone. It was a pleasure to teach. Thank you so much for tuning in. There was a lot of people listening today. Heidi, I'm very happy to help you procrastinate. I am also a master of procrastination. Lucienne asked, where can we get the pads? Dave, would you mind hopping in to the grade? I don't know. It's in the lesson about nails, nail shaping, and I have a link to these. Because you can buy them on Amazon. You used to be able to anyway. So maybe you could go and find them. Daniel said the micro mesh. So yeah, it's been great doing these live sessions. I plan to do them at least for the remainder of the lockdown. Sorry, Dave, could you actually take the link from Amazon? There's an Amazon link in there and post it in there, so the people who are not members can also see the same thing. Great. Carrie's on top of it. Thank you. We will do more of these. So we did the 4-scale ones. We'll do. So does anyone have any? I know I shouldn't do this, but does anyone have any requests of repertoire? Maybe Asturias. Any requests on repertoire? I probably will bring in some more guests as well to talk. I think it was lovely having Stephanie Jones last week and also Jeff Peterson the week prior. We had Ben Verder and Gohar Vardanyan. So maybe we'll bring in some other people. But the Alamand. One of the challenges is teaching, especially with a broad audience, is to teach pieces that will, nicely talk to people of all levels. And I think this is, obviously there's a lot of musical elements we can talk about here, especially the Gloria Gaynor elements. There's some French coming in here, and I so hesitate to actually say it out loud. Maybe someone can translate this for myself and as Elizabeth. Can anyone translate that? See, we've got some requests coming in. Debussy, one of my all-time favorite composers, love Debussy. Sevilla, Turkish March, I assume that's the Mozart Turkish March. Granados, stanza number 5. Chao de Estrellas by Baden-Powell. Adelita, see that? A lot of those pieces are on the more challenging end for sure. It's Eric Satie. Yes, I love Eric Satie. Mysterious. Well, I'm looking at all these and I will take them into it, and they'll be on the replay, so I'll take them all into account. Lagrima. Well, I do have a little lesson up on Lagrima already, but there's something. Would you agree that the live things are kind of different than a static video? In some ways, I think they're a little less robust because they don't have all those, graphics and things. But in some ways, they're kind of nicer because we're here right now and there's a different energy. There's a lot of different pieces. That's the other thing, that everyone just has, there's so many pieces that anyone could be working on at any given point in time. But I will take all of these into consideration. Endecha Oramus, thank you, Rick. Yeah, that's a piece I have already I've already engraved. I love those pieces, so maybe that's a nice one. Well, I kind of don't want to leave, but but I will. And so I will say that I do plan on being here 4 p.m. on Thursday. So we'll be back, same bat time, same bat channel. And like I said, if you've just come from the interwebs, you can go to classicalguitarcorner.com/live. There's sort of a special mailing list where I do email people on the day about these sessions, but know that Tuesday 4 p.m. and Thursday 4 p.m. is when I plan to be doing these. And this Sunday, for CGC folk, I think we're going to do something special. We're going to do a live session. We're going to call it Happy Hour. And I think the way we're going to do it is people are invited to do anything but classical guitar. There's a lot of very talented people. We've got artists, we've got poets, we've got all sorts of wonderful people in the academy. And on Sunday, I think we're going to have a session where you can have, straight up water or maybe another beverage along with you and relax and enjoy. And I think we're going to just have a nice time. I might even do some quizzes with some door prizes and all that kind of stuff. So I think it's just a nice chance and a good time for everyone to connect and relax because we kind of miss each other. And so Sunday, 4 p.m., that's when we're going to do it. I'll be putting something up in the academy in the forum for sure. So yeah, I think someone asked when these are happening. I'm going to do them always at 4 o'clock because it's easier to remember, to keep things consistent. All right, well, I've gotten all comfortable now. I don't want to leave you, but thank you. Have a great day. Stay safe. Be well. I'll see you all soon. Bye.